Here with the Joel Auge. How are you doing, Joel?
I'm doing quite well. Yourself?
Doing great, thanks. Now, what brings you to New York on a beautiful Friday?
Well, I was invited to meet with a whole bunch of different press, and I have a concert, I'm leading some songs at a church on Sunday called MSNY Church in New York City, so kind of just here for that.
Now, you've got a new disc, and it dropped, it dropped on the 1st.
July 1st, yes. It's called On the Blue.
Can you talk a little bit about that and say some of the basis for some of the songs?
Well, I mean, it's my wife's fault. She basically encouraged me to write songs for the church, and so I've been writing songs for a little while before that in the mainstream music market for film and television, and I wrote a song one day called "Singing Hallelujah," and Michelle heard it and she was crying, and crying is always good when it comes to songs. You can never go bad with crying. So she convinced me, Joel, you should really write more songs like this. So I wrote in 1 week about 7 of the songs that are on the album. And that led to me connecting with the producer and him wanting us to come down and record the songs. That happened by accident as well. And eventually we just had a product kind of birthed out of the ether. And that led to the release. Integrity heard some of the songs. Actually, they didn't hear some of the songs. They signed me as an artist and then bought the master and released the record.
Now, I know labels are a dangerous thing in the music business, but what do you think of the label of worship artist? I mean, what does that mean anything to you?
Well, it really does. It doesn't mean much unless you understand that worship has very little to do with music at all. This notion that Christ followers would segment their lives into, hey, this is Sunday morning song time, and this is called worship, and then the rest of our lives, as followers of Jesus, that's just like our real lives. It kind of doesn't make any sense. It's weird. So worship is really for me, it's just a living thing. It doesn't exist in song. It's how you live out your life. So my natural tendency is to write about things that impact me on a personal level. So when I have a relationship with God, and when I'm dialoguing with Him through life, those naturally come out of my songs. Like any good songwriter, I would expect, are writing about things that are impacting them. So for me, it just happens to be that. That's the label that the industry uses to make sure that people know where to find my record in the stores.
Sure.
And that's great. I mean, I'm from a marketing background, so I understand that need. But when it comes down to it, worship has very little to do with music. It has to do with life. It has to do with us being representatives of Christ, if you're a believer, to the world.
What do you think of the state of the current music industry? I mean, I saw you had an iTunes single. I mean, I can't think of whatever the iTunes calls it, but
yeah, it's like a free discovery download on iTunes. I am of the of the notion or the thought that people who are creative come up with creative solutions. So innovations tend to come from people who are of a creative bent. So the fact that the music industry is reeling with, what do we do with digital music? What do we do, with retail and all that stuff? It really excites me because it gives guys like you and me, I mean, the digital blogger, the person who's putting out media in a new way, and people like me who creates music and just wants people to hear it and participate in it. It gives us a whole bunch of new opportunities.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of my take on the current scenario. Hopefully, I'll be part of providing the music world with new ways of enjoying something that we all love, which is music, and in the midst of that, communicate my heart to people.
Now, with your first single, the iTunes single, I know some of the reviews and comparisons put a Coldplay label on that, and some of the British, if you will, piano pop.
Yes. oddly enough, there was never an actual pianist on the record. So it has been compared to piano pop, but mostly I think it's the melodic end of the songs that people are reflecting in those statements. So they'll hear it, and because I'm using a little bit of falsetto stuff, and I tend to, for me, melody is king. It really is. The song melodies are what attract people to wanting to sing them over and over again. So that's kind of where I think people come up with those labels, and I appreciate it. I'm a huge fan of Britpop music. So
now, in terms of say current music out there, is there anything you've listening to? Last CD you've bought?
Wow, I don't really buy CDs. I'm mostly an iTunes guy myself.
Yep.
So putting stuff onto the iPhone, I'm thinking of the most recent. I bought recently a what's her name? Brooke Fraser, who's from Australia, who I highly recommend to anyone. She's actually from New Zealand, but she released a record called Albertine, and it was an iTunes exclusive for a little while, and she's on Sony BMG in Australia. Just a phenomenal songwriter, artist. So she's someone I recommend. One of my favorite records this year for sure.
Now, what's next for you? I mean, is there a tour to follow behind the album?
Yes, I will be touring in the fall with Lincoln Brewster on the West Coast in California, Washington, and that area. I've been playing a lot of the Christian festivals this summer, and I basically will play wherever anyone asks me to play. But I have been playing a lot of the festivals and am keeping pretty busy.
Now, what kind of bands do you get at a Christian festival? And just to put context around it, the only other one I've met is Haste the Day that plays melodic hardcore.
Yes. Oh, what kind of bands? My goodness. Well, some people will have heard of like POD.
Oh yeah.
Or Mute Math.
Okay.
You know, those guys still play the Christian festivals. There's a lot of really cool music coming out of Canada. I'll shout out to the Hawk Nelson boys, and just any genre that you would see in the secular kind of mainstream industry, you could make a comparison in the Christian industry. I'm of the belief that there shouldn't be a divide between sacred and secular. That if something has value and it is a cool creation, then it should be measured up against whatever else is being created at the time. So the fact that there is an industry, I don't think that that's something that God has made. I think that's something that people make.
Sure.
So so hopefully, whether you're a believer or not, if you listen to a Joel Auge record, it will be something that has value on a creative level. And if that's not the case, then I'm really sorry. Yeah, so.
Yeah, sounds great. Joel, do you want to wrap up with your website or any final?
Sure. I have a website, joelauge.com. That's JOELAUGE.com. And that'll lead you to my MySpace and all of my events and concerts and all of the stuff that happens to me and Michelle on the road is kind of YouTubed and then put into that mechanism.
Sounds like fun. Well, thanks for the time today.
Thank you very much, Mike.